going to talk about AI, and AI is obviously that hype train that everybody either loves, hates, but it's a hype train. Who of you is on that edge of I'm afraid of AI and I'm afraid that it will kinda makes me deprecate it or pick my job? Hopefully nobody anymore. If I would ask this a year ago, there were a lot of people who were like, yeah, I don't know, man. Especially people that have no clue what to do with code and what LLMs come up with. But guess what? You've heard, who was in the keynote this morning? Well, you already heard this morning, the opening keynote, you already heard that AI voice generation is not great, Bert Jen Scriber or something like that, but still there are things like this. Like if AI still does not get the context right, it will just do things. So luckily, I think we're in an era where we use AI code generative tools and all that kind of stuff as a tool that can make us better, faster, and stronger. My name is Brian. Whole list of what I do, who I am, whatever, Java, something. I do something for the NL Jug. Most importantly, I am a developer advocate for Sneak. Sneak is a security company that does security tooling. What a developer advocate does, I have no clue. Ask 20 different developer advocates, you probably get around 50 different answers. I used to code a lot, now I email a lot. I think that sums it up. So I'm going to go into a little bit of an introduction of AI in development, how we can use it, how we should use it. We're going to actually build something using Copilot, and we're going to get into some takeaways. But first I want to know from you, who is using AI tools, AI coding assistants in their IDE for work? Okay, who does not? What is the reasoning why not? Just scream, it's fine. Policies, yes, I get that. Like, I cannot use it because my boss does. Yeah, sure, I get that. Okay, I'm getting taped, you're not getting taped. Who is like, I'm actually not allowed to use it, but I still do it sometimes? I thank you for your honesty. Anyway, the thing is there's a misconception about these kind of tools in AI. But first, like, why are they, what is good for them? Why should we use them? How should we use them? But let's go into why should we use them. First of all, adding comments. Yeah, sure. Great. Adding comments might be interesting. Summarizing code, that is actually a nice one. Because there's a lot of code that I wrote 3 months ago that I have no clue what it was. And I think that is very recognizable for many folks, like to take your code from a year ago or from 2 years ago or 5 years ago, and you're like, why the hell did I do that? So that's very good. Writing readmes because, hey, there are people that actually read readmes. Refactoring code, providing templates, sure. I mean, I'm not a front-end developer, so providing me a template for an engine, that's also great. But most of the most important parts are pair programming. People nowadays see it as like, okay, I can use it as my AI generative pair programmer that I work with, or even more, it generates code for me. I think that is the most significant one. But is that any different of what we did, say, 10 years ago or 5 years ago? The thing is, before that, we just Googled it, looked on Stack Overflow, copy-pasted into our problem or to our application, looks if it works, maybe write a test around it, maybe, because who cares? We've got 10 million testers in production. Then deploy it, and it's fine. If nobody complains it works, it's great, without having actually an idea what we did. But now we're basically doing this at scale. Instead of actually looking for it, trying it out, maybe tweaking it a little bit. Now, an AI development tool like Copilot or Code Whisperer or anything like that can help me with that. So yes, we can create more code. If I say that to a general CEO, he would be like, great. Because what we know, that means more speed, more velocity, more sprint burn down charts that are getting, yeah, true. It also means if there's more code created and more speed and the velocity of the code creation goes up, you probably create more complexity. Because, hey, we still are in that point. Maybe you are not. And most of you, I assume, are at least senior developers or higher up. But think about the junior developer that just came from university. It's like, looks good, works on my machine. Hey, what? I even generated tests with it. Ship it. But if there's more speed, more code, more complexity, then it's harder to debug. Then it's harder to get into actual problems. Then, for instance, if you need to go into a heap dump or something like that, it will be pretty significant to know actually what your code does and not it just works. But next to that, it technically or will come with more vulnerabilities, because most people don't have understanding of what their code does anymore, and because we created such a great length, at such a great scale, we don't even know what we did 3 months ago. I don't even remember what I ate last night. Can I remember what my Copilot created for me and why? No, it works fine, right? Get to the next task on my Jira board. Done. And that's how we work. But the thing is, more code, more vulnerabilities, it sounds great. It sounds great to many people in management and senior leadership. But yes, LLMs might give developers superpowers, because we were looking for that 10x developer, remember? We saw, or GitHub saw in a late research, that at least 97% of people in software engineering have used AI coding tools at work at some point in time. That means that almost everybody is using it. Either they're admitting it now or not doing it anymore, but at some point they used it. We did similar research with other data, and we came around that same number. So we see that 96% of the teams that are using AI coding tooling, and they make it part now of the software supply chain, meaning that the code that you create is not mentally yours, but you just accept it, and it's now part of your chain of things that come into your artifact, and that artifact goes into production. AWS did a research about completing tasks, and they found out that 57% of the software developers that used AI tools think or have the perception that they complete their tasks faster. But at what cost? NYU, the New York University, did a research on things on Copilot, and they say 40% of Copilot-generated code contains vulnerabilities. And if you have no clue, for instance, what a path traversal is, what a cross-site scripting is, you're like, looks fine to me. We generate a test, works on my machine, ship it. Then Stanford did something similar, and they said developers wrote significantly less code than those without access, more likely to believe they wrote secure code, meaning that there are a bunch of developers that implicitly trust the code generated by a coding assistant. Who of you does code reviews? Do you blindly trust the code of your coworker? One person. I don't want to know what the bond is between you and your coworker. Maybe it's great. Maybe you're married. Might be the same thing. But the thing is, we don't implicitly trust the code from our coworkers, but we do implicitly trust or believe to trust code that is generated by Copilot or something similar. Guess what it's trained on? Yeah, I don't have to answer that. You can all read, right? Just read this for a second. Only the last line. Therefore, 59 plus 43 equals 51. Sure, buddy. Sure. And you know what the fun thing is? If you even point it to the fact that it's wrong, are you sure about your last result? Yes, I'm confident that the answer 59 plus 43 is 51. If you think there might be... So the thing is, it doesn't know it's wrong until you actually read and try to understand what happens. And this is a very simple example. But if you trust it, it is very good at convincing you, at being very specific, yes, I'm right, and you're like, okay. And we saw this ever again in different things. Like, you probably have heard of the Air Canada incident, the incident that Air Canada created a chatbot based on an LLM, and it answered questions from customers. And the customer asked questions, and at a certain time, the ELM came up with the fact that they were allowed a full compensation of whatever was happening, But it was actually not true because in the bylaws it was not allowed actually. However, the judge ruled that because it was not clear it was a bot, Air Canada had to pay. We saw things with lawyers that used ChatGPT to generate legal research, and apparently it looked great at first glance, but then it had links and that kind of stuff. Links were not pointing to the right direction. Things were hallucinated. Things were wrong. And at that certain point, that lawyer got, I won't say disbarred, not yet, but they got a repercussion on that. So AI will be wrong. And when it's wrong, it doesn't know it's wrong because it doesn't have a conscience. And it will be very convincing to you or anybody that has not the precise knowledge of what you're doing that it's right. Somebody said something like, okay, I'm not allowed to use things like Copilot because of policies. Yeah, that's also a thing. There was a problem once where Samsung workers just copy-pasted things into ChatGPT to ask it questions, and you know that's always the most sensible thing to do. If you use some kind of these tools, it might be interesting to first of all look at what they say about how they will use your data. And I know this might be a little small, but this is the FAQ from OpenAI. And it says over here, we may use content submitted to ChatGPT, DALL-E, or our other service for individuals to improve model performance. I have no clue what model performance means, but they will use my stuff. And then it's like, okay, but this is ChatGPT. We're talking about tools that are included in my IDE, like Copilot. Okay, sure, I'm using Copilot. So I asked ChatGPT, honestly, where can I find what Copilot does with my code? I'm like, well, maybe it's faster. So it came up like, go to the Copilot Trust Center. So I went. And Copilot Trust Center, at the end over here at the bottom, it says, does GitHub Copilot use any of your code to train GitHub's model? Like, that's interesting. And then it says, no. Like, okay, thank God. GitHub uses neither Copilot business nor enterprise data for training the GitHub model. And then I'm like, okay, but GitHub has 3 tiers. Individual, business, and enterprise. So it says no, but actually, if you look at individual, it depends. So I went into my Copilot settings. And you know what? There's a little small box over here that says allow GitHub to use my code snippets for the code editor for product improvements. Honestly, I don't know what the default setting for that is now. I switched it off. But I can imagine default is on or not. It depends. But it's something to look at. So if you use these kind of tools on proprietary software, on proprietary code, on code that might contain things like secrets or something like that, Copilot has basically access to your whole repository or everything that is in your IDE. Do you want that? Okay, but what about actual code? I told you that we're going to build an application. We're going to build a coffee shop, a Java coffee shop, Spring Boot application, timely front end. Application is here, and I already started it up. And as you can see, works fine on my machine, right? You see, I'm a great front-end developer, all clean. This is scalable, works on every mobile device. Not really. Thing is, just to show you, like, okay, Timeleaf works with, it can work with things like templates. And over here, I made a partially template, like my coffee shop. It contains fragment header. And what I want to do now is, well, maybe something like include, oh, that's not comment in, include header and products table. It doesn't matter, they say, if I miswrite it. So let's see what it comes up with. So it says already header and products table. Luckily, I did the S because that's exactly one of the things that I have in my. It's a little small over here. In my. Ah, here they are. Fragments. Here, products table, and the header. These parts I want to include. So, oh, do it again. Come on. Great, done. Let's redo this. Let's rerun this. Now let's see if it works. Does it work, you think? It does. Yes, that's how time leaf works. People will say, but it's a commons. No, it doesn't matter. It works. So Copilot can do different things, and it can help me. It's great. So now I have products over here. I have all sorts of coffees, and because I think coffees are boring, I also put in beers. Right? What's wrong with beers? Then one of the things over here is I can search, I can log in, I can do all sorts of things, but at least I have now a visible application. Great. So that's done. Let's go to the next one. Makes search table, or make products table searchable. Because at this point, my products table, let me enlarge it. Let's search for, I don't know, taste. It doesn't work yet because I didn't implement the function. Very simple. So let's go to the function search repository. And as you can see, my search product returns null. So say I need to implement this. This was just a stub. And I want to implement this like, okay, search. So you can use Copilot, this is what I installed, in different ways. Either you can use it using the chat, or you can give it hints in the comments. And I'm using the second one because I think it's far more integrated. Or at least I hope. Search for products based on the input. Now I want to, what did I say? Name and description. Search for products by description or product name. Okay, see, it already tries to get in my head. And you know what annoying is? Sometimes you think a certain way, and Copilot is, no, you don't need to think in that way. And it starts to give you certain things, and you're like, no, stop it. And then you turn it off because it's annoying, like a child. And then you're like, okay, but how do I need to do it? And then you turn it on again, and you get the same thing over and over again. So let's see. Search for products by description or product name. Okay, it comes up with var lower input to lowercase, sure, makes sense. Let's put a query in, looks good to me. Result list, great. Return the result list. Works on my machine, right? Good. So I am like, this looks great. So what I'm doing now is like I'm doing parallel development. So what I'm doing now is I will commit this, implementing search for product. Sure, commit and push. Continue. Yeah. Commit and push anyway. Warnings are there to ignore. That's what they told me. Warnings are a warning for a reason. You don't need to listen to it. As long as it works, it's fine. So in the meantime, it's getting pushed. That is great. Let me rerun this. Okay. So, okay, I push this. So it's now over here. That said, okay, 2 commits ahead. Now that's the other one. Oh, jfall 24 had reason to push this 4 seconds ago. Compare and pull request. Now I need to log in, obviously. Yeah, sure. No, I won't show you my password. Yay for 2-factor authentication. So, looks good to me. Create pull request. Oh, you know what I did now? I did it to the main repository. That was not my intention. That was not my intention. Now my colleagues will get very, very angry. So what I can do again, I can do like it's still an issue, right? Still a pull request. This pull request is here, and let's not close pull request, because then people will get really angry. Where can I get the pull request again? Let's make a new pull request. New pull request from, what was it? jfall. Sorry? Go back to my fork. Thank you. Appreciate that. This is should be this one, right? Pull request. Implementing search for products. Which one was it? It's 2 weeks ago. Well, pretty much the same thing. But what I did here, I created already a pull request here just to show you. And in the meantime, while I was creating the pull request, it did a few scans for me. security scan, a license scan. Security scan is basically checking if I'm pulling in more new libraries. Well, in this case, it's not the case. Are there any licenses, any license problems? That's also not the case over here. But it also shows me like, hey, do you have code problems? And obviously there are code problems. So let's look into details and let's see what the code problems were. So a static analysis check, and it says, hey, free from the search repository, there is a problem. Sure, I don't see it. Full details. And what you can see over here, it says, hey, look, buddy, all fine, but let me make this a little bit smaller. Yes. So I created a SQL injection, and you can see here that select star from product lowercase input. I put the lowercase input as part of my string. So I hope you all know what a SQL injection is, right? Who doesn't know what a SQL injection is? That's no problem if you don't know. But what I did, I interfered with the parameter. The parameter is interfering with my query string. And that query string goes as one string to the database. And therefore, because I can interfere with my parameter or with the input from the user in this case, I can interfere with the execution path of a SQL inject or of a SQL query. So it's already warning me, and that's great because in this case, before I create a pull request, it actually comes up with stuff like, Brian, don't do this. To show you what the actual problem is, and let me first manage my extensions and get my password, one password out, because then it will not annoy me that much. But what I can do here, if I have something like this, so first of all, I am closing the query because my parameter starts with a single quote, so it needs to end with a single quote, and then I do a semicolon. Basically, I'm closing that part of the query. Then on the other end, I'm simply saying dash dash. That means the rest of my query is comments. And in the meantime, I say, okay, update, set all prices to 0 because I am Dutch and I am a freaking freeloader. So let's rerun this, and now all my coffees and beers are free. And that's what Copilot suggested to me. Sounds great, right? Well, obviously it's not, and luckily when he created my pull request, it scanned for me, and it said like, it might look great, but not. First of all, what is the problem? How should we, question for you, because most of you are senior level software engineers, how should I solve this? What's the way to solve this in Java? Prepared statement, GPA. Prepared statement, correct, but it's incomplete. ORM, parameterization. Okay, combine the two. Prepared statement with parameterization. Because if I do sanitization, yes, can be, but sanitization is possible, but hard to sanitize the input and, for instance, filter. But yes, sanitization is always a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Prepared statements and parameterized queries. And the reason for that is if I do a prepared statements and I don't parameterize my queries, I still put the query in the string, it doesn't work. If I do only parameterized queries, it depends on the implementation that I'm doing, because currently I am using GPA. I'm using Create Native, and that's part of GPA. But what is GPA in Spring Boot? It's a reference. We have no clue what it is. Who knows what the default implementation of GPA is in Spring Boot? People like hibernate, question mark? Do you think that or do you know that? Think, and that's exactly what I mean. Yes, it is hibernate, and yes, hibernate uses prepared statements. But it's not clear. You don't know for sure because JPA is nothing but a reference. It can also be something else, and there are multiple ways of doing it. Luckily, defaults are good. And I will explain to you what the difference is. So, a prepared statement is basically a statement that we create, and we put question marks in or wildcards in, and we put that as a first step. We send it to the database, and we let the DBMS solve it. Because it sees the structure of the query and where the wildcards are in, it can already create the execution path. In a second go, I will send the parameters to my database, and because the execution path is already created, you cannot interfere with the execution path anymore. The difference is, for instance, in a lot of JavaScript framework, you can parameterize the query, but what does the library do with parameterization? Sometimes it's just escaping. And if you know how things are getting escaped, you can also de-escape it or like do something with it. Because escaping it only mean it happens client side, creates a query, and it sends the whole query with the parameterized things that are escaped to the database. So if I know how the escaping work, I can still technically interfere with that. So that's why parameterized statements with parameterized queries with prepared statements. So how should I solve this in my code? Well, the best answer is obviously, let's ask it, right? Let's go back to here. Let's go to my search repository again. Like, okay, what was it? Search, sorry? Search product by description and by description. I can do this, I guess. Nope, that's not good. I can description or product name. Product name and prevent SQL injection. That might be clear, right? Guess what it comes up with? With the same crap. Okay, let me... And now it comes up with something. So you see what it comes up with? And now at least says here, like input, and input is set in a second stage over here. So because it is still a create native query, and we know that we use parameterized, or we use prepared statements, I now have a more safe way to do this. And this SQL injection that I just did is not possible anymore. However, I need to know a crap ton about SQL injection to make Copilot go and deviate from that route that I already was in. Who knows how LLMs work? Like a general thing. All right, great. So you know that we have a prompt, and that prompt in this case is my comment that goes into an LLM, because this is LLM based, and it takes a context, and that context can be something I give to that thing, something that I purposely put into that thing, but it takes some context, it takes your prompt, and then it spits out something else. Depending on the temperature, it is basically what is the most common and the most, well, usable answer, hopefully. Guess what your context here is? It's your own freaking code. Meaning that if you create something like that and you already have a monolithic application, it takes all of that plus everything that it learns on GitHub. And trust me, there are a lot of repositories on GitHub that are not great. And then it comes up with a conclusion. And that conclusion might differ from person to person depending on what the code is that you already have. Meaning that if your code is super secure, and you have no problems, you probably won't have a problem. But if you have problems somewhere, it will duplicate it because it tries to be in the same stage, in the same code templates and the same way of writing as you already did, which is actually a feature from Copilot. Meaning it's not Copilot's fault, actually, it's a feature. Where did we hear that before? All right? It's not a bug. So, okay, at least we created something. We created a product table. Now, let's allow users to personalize their profiles. Cool. So what we can do over here is that we can log in. Oh, it's not running anymore. Let me let it run. So I can log in, and of course, I take my colleague's name. And the password was 12312. I don't tell you the last character. Trust me, I work at a security company. So I can log in, and what I can do here in the profile, I can want to upload a picture. And you guess what? This function is not yet like upload. I can pick a picture, but then uploading doesn't work yet because that's again one of the silly things that I return null for. So let's do the same thing over here again. Let's go to my upload controller. And what we see over here is, this is normally, I can take that one. This is where it comes in. It comes in as a multi-part file. It looks great. Let's say upload file to upload folder. uploads folder. It's great. Looks good to me. Original file name, that's great. Path.upload look also fine. File.write, sure. What it does, set the profile picture for the user, might be interesting. Get the principal, yes. Cool. Oh, maybe we say, oh, it saves the person. And does it give me a return? Display success message. Sure, looked good to me. Right, well, this sounds good. Oh, I shouldn't do this one. What's wrong with it?
You save stuff.
Sorry?
You save stuff.
I save stuff, but maybe I need to save stuff.
Don't think so.
Path traversal. Thank you. One of the things over here, I have, let me rescan this because hopefully that works. Yes, and I have a ton of application problems in there because I created it. One of the things over here, it says, Brian, it's you see, I have a ton of problems over here. I have an IDE plugin, and conveniently, that's created by my company, as in I created parts of it. But one of the things, like in your upload controller that I just created, it now says I have a path traversal problem. And the path traversal problem, it doesn't have an issue overview yet. Maybe that's because, oh, it's a generate AI fix. Let's not do that, because I don't trust AI. The problem over here is what happens here is the upload directory and the name. The name, sorry, let's re-go. When I submit this picture comes in as a multi-part file. Multi-part file is nothing more than a POJO. It's a object representation of a post request. Then I say from that post request, sure, get original file name and replace all spaces by underscores, great. Then the new file name and path is the upload folders plus the name. And then I say write to that new file and path. We can all follow that, right? But what if the name is something like, I can do this a gazillion times, it doesn't matter. Yeah, go like that, @c that pass WD. Great, that's exactly what I want. Thank you, Copilot. What happens is, depending on what is running this application, what is the user? Well, obviously, I'm local host, or I am root on this machine. I have root access, so I can break out of the upload folder, traverse all the way into the root, and then go to the @c that pass WD, and override the pass WD with a random picture. That might not seems very significant, but first of all, depends on the user that's running the process. Question: who uses Docker? What's the default user for a Docker container? Okay, at least a lot of people know it's root. Do you actually set a lesser privileged user? You hold your hands, come on. Yeah, that's 20%. So that means if your application is running in a Docker container and you don't set that specific user or don't call that specific user, you're running it as root, meaning their application has access to everything in that environment, the whole operating system. Also means I can override files on certain things that have not direct influence on your application, but might be callable, and I can call different things. And you might say, okay, but that sounds difficult. Can you actually do that? Oh, sure. So this application is running, or let me rerun it. So we now have an implementation of actually uploading this picture. So, yep, my orders, fine, profile, but I'm not using this, I'm using another tool. I have one of my favorite tools called Burp Suite. Has nothing to do with burping, but Burp Suite. Burp Suite is a tool that a lot of people use for, let's call it pen testing. In a lot of cases, it's also used for capture the flag events. So I'm using Burp Suite, and what I'm doing, I'm starting Burp Suite, and I'm using the proxy server over here, which basically does a man-in-the-middle attack on myself, or basically caching all the things that go in and go out. To this proxy, I open a browser that is connected to this proxy, and this is, in this case, Chromium, so localhost 8081, which is the application. Let's log in again as Simon, that's great. Hey, Simon. Profile. Sure, upload, choose a picture. Let's make Simon look good. Okay, look. And now Simon looked great. Okay, but why did I use Burp Suite? Let's go here. My proxy has a history. And I can go to the post request over here. Upload image post request. Let's go there. What we see on the left side, if I can get this up, is the request, and this is the response. Let's go to the request. Let's copy it to my repeater, which means I can repeat the same request. The red part over here is the actual image. Not important because it's gibberish, right? Somebody tampered with that picture to make me actually look good, and these are settings from Adobe. Nothing interesting. But what's interesting is that there are a bunch of headers over here, including the file name. So let's see if I do // and let's call it something like that. Now it will jump out of my upload folder, at least into the root folder of my application. And obviously, if I'm a more privileged user, I can go all the way into somewhere on the system, but I don't want to screw up my machine. I actually need to code tomorrow. So if I do this, I get a HTTP 200 back, and let's look. If I'm going back to my application, resolutions, I love them. What we can see in the lower part is that in the uploads folder, we have all sorts of stuff like Brian 500 that I just upload. But the I like jfall JPEG is not in the upload folder anymore. I successfully broke out of the upload folder, which means if I broke out of the upload folder, I can also break out of the application scope and go into your operating system, go in there and change different things. For instance, maybe in your JDK or in your JRE or something like that, and let it connect to different things. Because it is just a post request which we can influence. Seeing again that Copilot came up with something which is not wrong, because if you look at different tutorials how to upload a picture to your system using Timeleaf and Spring Boot, you will get similar code. And that similar code has that problem already. Copilot was trained on that, so we'll give you that thing as well. And as we know, we did not trust the code from our coworker, remember? So yes, we still need things to change. So let's see how we can change this. And again, well, in this case, we have a tool for that. But maybe Copilot can help me again. Let's just not do all of this. File to upload the folder, and prevent path traversal. Sure. Yes, looks good. And it does the same thing over and over and over again. So you see, it's in that loop like, oh, you accepted this thing already, that might think so it might think it is good, and it will not give you a clear answer. Let's see if this feature works. I don't know, it's new. I know it was an alpha version. Attempting to fix path traversal. This kind of works. So what it does over here, and as you can see, it normalizes the path, meaning that all the // is getting normalized to wherever it traverses to, and then I check if it starts with the actual upload directory. If it does not return, right? Maybe I want to be more vivid and actually do something like throw new IO exception invalid file is great. This is bullshit. So, oh, sorry for my English. Anyway, now I solved it. Now I actually check and I do the input validation if the input is correctly or not. But again, I need to know this. So, what time is it? I'm already good on my way. So we allowed users to personalize the profile. Also, let's create a unique product page per product. Well, we already did this. This is something else, like I ported some old code to this application because we already had this. Why should I redo it? So let's see what we already have. And let's go to where is it? The products table. Let's escape this, and let's put this one out. Let's rerun it. Let's see if it actually works. That's great. I can cancel Burp Suite. I don't need it anymore. So I am now in, yes, I'm in a good one. Great. So what you see now, I have links. And one of the links is I can click on it. And it creates me a separate page for the street look. What do you see in the parameter? Parameter is street look. Well, obviously this is not great because maybe the first thing that I see, obviously, maybe we can do something like this. Oh. Why does it do the script? Ah, dyslexia. This is great. Is script, yes? Alert 1 / script, and it works. Meaning I have a cross-site scripting over here. Cross-site scripting problem. And okay, that might have been there, fine. So let's actually look at my at the problem over here. What is happening here? So go to the product controller, and the product controller over here has a, oh, enlarge it, has a product name, and that product name will get ventilated over here, and it's basically just writing HTML back to the response writer. That product name comes in from this mapping, and a product name is nothing more than a parameter that comes in. So okay, this is cross-site scripting, but there's a second problem. Over here, I'm also looking up, or actually I'm doing that here. I am doing a lookup to what the product is in the database, and then I'm sending product.getProductType, product.price, and all sorts of other things to this function. So this is data that comes from my database, and I will output this here using the writer. This is also cross-site scripting. The first one is what we call reflective cross-site scripting because it comes in via the URL and it gets directly reflected to the user. The other one is what we call stored cross-site scripting. There's already a reason why we have this really annoying red line under it. Because what if my database is untrusted? What if somebody attacked my database and you're like, sure, but the database is mine, right? Are you the only one that can write to the database? Is your application the only one that can write to the database? Or are there other applications writing to the database? What if your database is compromised in whatever way? Then I can just store something, it will get prompted, or it will get served to you in one of these pages, and it will show the JavaScript. And the JavaScript is now alerting one. It's not interesting because it's just annoying. But maybe we can look into your settings or into your document.cookies. Maybe I can get your session ID if it's not properly set, offload it to my wife's AWS account because I don't want to get involved, and then take that session ID and take over your session. So I did the most reasonable thing to do. I took this code, gave it to ChatGPT, and asked it, what the hell is wrong with it? So what I did, and I did this in this screen, I copy-pasted the exact code. And it says like, okay, explanation, direct link, sure. So it catches something as in the product name, and then it explains to me what a cross-site scripting attack is, how to fix it. Maybe you want to use the OWASP encoder, encode for HTML. Well, that's obvious, that's great. Summary, to mitigate XSS vulnerabilities, always escape user input. Great. So it only picked up one of the two problems. Even though ChatGPT 4.0 is quite smart or quite well trained, it doesn't pick up all the problems even if you give it right into its face. So in this case, if I would trust this and I would only solve the first problem, yes, then the reflective cross-site scripting problem was solved, but the stored cross-site scripting was still there, and ChatGPT did not follow it. Although ChatGPT now also knows that I'm writing horrible code. But the thing is, luckily, I have a tool in here that can catch these things. So it says here you have two cross-site scripting problems. And this is not just to promote my tool. This is basically to say like, okay, you cannot do one without the other. Things like generative AI are great tools, but that doesn't dismiss you from looking at certain problems, knowing what security issues are there, and checking actively for security problems. So how to approach secure AI assistant development? First of all, write up policies and company guidelines. Well, some people have policies that are very strict. You cannot use it. I'm not sure if that is the great policy, but at least have policies in your company, how you should use it, why you should use it, what you should use, and what kind of settings you should take, because you don't want to get your intellectual property out. Focus on security vulnerabilities, sensitive data, and IP. Well, IP I just called, but security vulnerability and sensitive data is something we need to focus on, as in most of us come from an engineering background, an engineering school. Maybe you went to university, you did a software engineering education, whatever. It makes us builders, not breakers. Many of us know what a SQL injection is. Some of us know what a path traversal is, but if we go deeper than that, we don't always know what we're looking for. Plus, we are builders, not breakers. Meaning, like, okay, I need to get this task done. It works, like the tests are kind of there. Works on my machine, ship it. Things are, security vulnerabilities with Copilot are there, and we need to check for them. And therefore, we need to make sure that education is actionable, and we are educated on what kind of stuff we need to look for and what it actually means. How important is it? So don't just blindly trust whatever GitHub comes up with or what GitHub Copilot comes up with. What we say is like, treat AI as your very junior developer. And we just agreed that we do not trust our colleagues. Well, then we're done. Make sure you test and validate. Like, don't trust implicitly, but actually test it. And use ChatGPT or any other tool, but use it together with other tooling, like QA tooling, things like Sonar. Use it together with a tooling that does static analysis on your code for security vulnerabilities, because I don't want to have that burden of thinking of all of these things while I'm actually trying to solve a problem. ChatGPT or Copilot is great, but it doesn't dismiss you from knowing and checking for security vulnerabilities. If you want to know more, we have a lot of future readings how to handle certain things like AI and AI generative code and LLMs in like what you should consider just in a readable page. We've got a report. It's great. I am using our free plugin for IntelliJ. You can use that. You have to sign up for an account, which is free. You can use it. This is free. This is open source. Yes, that's why I'm allowed to talk about it. If you want to use anyone else's thing because you think it's a better fit, do it. It doesn't matter if you use the one from Sneak or any other of the competitors. But try to implement this in your IDE already, that you can get the feedback right away while you code or while Copilot is generating your code, vice versa, or potato. So that is what I was using. Feel free to use it, but use something. That's what I wanted to say. And basically, that's what I have for today. Make sure that you use these kind of tools. These will be very handy. For instance, I had to change an application that was traditionally written in an old Java application, and it needs to be transferred to, in this case, C#. But I had to do it. And Copilot helped me with that, and it works, and it was good enough at the very least. So use these kind of tools. But again, it doesn't dismiss you from having all your other things, like making sure it is scalable, maintainable, readable, and secure. And that's what I want to conclude with. I hope this was useful. Thank you so much.